Jalen Hurts the leader? Let's talk about that here on today's Philadelphia Eagles Now. Jalen Hurts a couple of weeks ago got slack from the media about how he handled questions about the new Nick Sirianni and him giving up his offensive system and not really having a hand in the Eagles offense going into 2024. He is given fully the keys to new offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. And when Hurts was asked about the new Sirianni, the way that he responded wasn't really a vote of confidence for his head coach. That came on the heels of what happened last year when the media asked Hurts, the franchise quarterback, the face of the organization, about whether or not he wants Sirianni back. And he said, I didn't even know that was a conversation. So you had Joe DeCamera, 94 WIP in Philadelphia, saying he did an awful job of answering those questions. Jeff McClain of the Philadelphia Inquirer, maybe the most trusted source for Eagles reporting, reported on his podcast that the Eagles higher-ups were disappointed with how Jalen Hurts handled it. And then you had former Eagle quarterback and franchise great Ron Jaworski saying this week that he was disappointed in Jalen Hurts as well, and he loves him as a player, but needs to take strides as a leader. What's noteworthy here? And what do you notice as we put on our investigative hats? All of that is coming from people outside of the locker room. What we want to find out is what's the consensus from another team leader and another team captain. And this is what Lane Johnson had to say on the Rich Eisen Show. You hear lots of stories. He's probably alluding to the story from a couple of weeks ago that we talked about on the show. He continued by saying, but I think just this offseason, he's really done a great job of bonding with his teammates. I felt like the connection has definitely grown. It's been a big offseason. The work ethic has never been the issue. Tremendous worker is Jalen Hurts, but just becoming a more vocal leader. I think whenever he speaks, guys listen up, and him reaching out to guys and creating those bonds this offseason. He's having these throwing sessions with receivers, getting work in. He's gone out of his way to connect with his teammates, and we feel that. That last part, we feel that. The team feels it, and this is good to hear. But remember, people lead in different ways, and Jalen Hurts is a unique individual. His father was a coach. So sometimes he doesn't really like expanding on his thoughts and answering questions from the media, and he goes about it in a short way that is very coach speak. Hurts is himself. I think he's somewhat authentic with who he is, but there are different types of leaders as well. And that's what we have to factor in here, both with the Philadelphia Eagles and then at your workplace and beyond. There are vocal leaders. There are silent leaders. There are rah-rah leaders. There are lead by example leaders. There are people who lead because when they see something, they say something. There are leaders who need more of a collaborative approach. There are motivating leaders. What is Jalen Hurts' leadership style? Or at least, what has it been so far the last couple of years since getting drafted in the second round by Philadelphia out of Oklahoma? He's very cool, calm, and collected. That's his personality. He's somewhat reserved and stoic. He's a flatliner. He never gets too high. He never gets too low. I think that's really important as a quarterback. You don't want a quarterback who's overly emotional, who at every turn is barking at his teammates. But sometimes as a quarterback, you need to be more visible. You need to be more heard. And I think that's what Lane Johnson was referring to here, because when the quarterback, as the Philadelphia Eagles are on this skid last year, which was historic at the end of the year, things are going poorly, things are snowballing, and the quarterback is just kind of in the corner not saying anything. Sometimes you need the quarterback to have everybody huddle around that Eagles logo in the locker room and get after his teammates, or to provide some motivational messages that aren't just Bible scriptures. And of course, Hurts is known for talking and going in detail about these Bible scriptures. That's great. But sometimes you need to lead in a variety of ways, and that is the realistic role of a quarterback or the face of the franchise. So imagine this. The CEO or the face of the company that you work for is looked at as the leader, but that leader is never around. you don't see that person, that can be an issue for a company, for a team, because the employees, or in this case, the teammates, are wondering, what are the expectations? What are expected of us? What's expected of me? And if things are snowballing, can somebody kick our ass into gear? It can't always come from the head coach. Sometimes it has to come from the leaders. And what can ease tension outside of the building? On top of this, as part of this conversation, it's Hurts maybe doing a better job. It's Hurts being more vocal, him taking on these leadership qualities, which Lane Johnson is referring to. Jalen Hurts can also silence the detractors and silence the doubters and silence those who think that he's not a good leader by playing well and rebounding from what was a bad end of the year last year. In 2022, led the team to the Super Bowl. He had nearly 400 all-purpose yards. He accounted for 4 touchdowns. He was terrific in that game. Somehow, some people still think that he stinks after he was dropping dimes in that game. He was the MVP of the Super Bowl, in my opinion, against the Kansas City Chiefs. That year, he finished runner-up for MVP. And you see those numbers to the left. Numbers to the right, very similar, but there was a decline in some of those numbers. And of note, running wasn't the same. The interceptions and turnovers went up. And then there were L's at the end of the year, which were ugly losses as well. Hurts plays well. Nobody's going to be talking about him as a leader. They play poorly. They're going to start talking and theorizing about Hurts no longer being the quarterback following 2024, and things can get ugly, especially in this city. What do you think before we hop on out of here? Will Jalen Hurts be better, or will he be worse than last year? Type B for better or W for worse. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. What we're doing right now on Eagles Now is very, very special. We have a lot of competitive people here in the bullpen, in the office at Chat Sports. Some great hosts, some great channels. Eagles Now, #1 as far as subscribers picked up this month. And make sure you give me a follow on X and Instagram at Chase_Senior. A lot of short form content on those social media pages.